All right. Since I had to squeeze all that other stuff in, or squeeze this vicious cycle into the last video, I thought I'd just set this one aside so that we spend more time unpacking a little bit. And really what we're talking about is the vicious cycle of depression, or depressive thoughts, if you will. And like I mentioned to you as well, is that the cognitive component of depression really can't be understated. How that actually plays out is really quite profound, and it fits right into really our perspective about the impact of our belief system. And I'm not talking about religious belief systems, but beliefs really do have a direct impact on mood, which also then has a direct impact on the effectiveness of the actions that I take. If I think that my actions are not going to have any particular impact, then I probably will have a very different quality of action than if I actually feel like I have a chance of success. So let me fill this in, and we'll again unpack it a little bit further. It always starts with the stressful experiences that occur. And, when you think about, let's just say, for example, which all of you have had, you get feedback back on your journal review, and it would be stressful. A lot of times we have a hard time distinguishing performance from person, and how we interpret these experiences have a huge impact on how we understand them. So if you have a more negative explanatory style, in other words, this went bad because I am so incapable, so bad, nothing goes right for me because it's me, these things have a direct impact. So the experience itself occurs, and then there is an interpretation that occurs in this area that leads to and is part of, let me put that there, the leads are actually is contained in this negative explanatory style. And that's where the beliefs of inadequacy come in. Inadequacy, helplessness, I can't do anything about myself, that's just the way I am. The thing to keep in mind here is that, remember the locus of control perspective, that if I'm an internal locus of control person, then I will see that I have the ability to change these circumstances. And so all of these then lead then to a depressed mood. And we can have a huge impact on our mood just by how we frame the world. And that's the one thing I would put right here in the middle. I know your author doesn't, but I would, because I've talked to so many people, is frame is everything. How I frame the world, how I understand it, how I explain it, all has everything to do with my mood and how I feel about things. That then moves into not only behavioral changes, so I won't try because I think it's doomed to failure anyway, behavioral changes, but as it goes along, there's also cognitive changes. And when I talk about cognitive changes, as we've already mentioned, it has everything to do with how we think. So I have certain beliefs about the world at large. I have beliefs about me, and I have beliefs about, and when I say the world at large, how they work, how the world works, and then it really is about other people. And my significance or what I can actually contribute to them. So the world, me, and others would all fit into this. And there is a particular theorist who talked about this in terms of the cognitive, what he referred to as the cognitive triad, that Aaron Beck is the person who mentions this, which then leads to when I come up to another experience, guess what happens to my behavior? I look at this stressful experience, I explain it in a very negative way, and mood gets worse. I try less. I see myself as more incompetent, and then when a stressful experience comes along, I'm not very effective because I don't expect myself to be effective. And those are all very much a part of this vicious cycle. Now, the question would be, and I'm sure it's probably coming to you, is that if you're in this place, how do I change it? And it has everything to do with right here. What do I do with the interpretation? Romans 1 talks about, Romans 1 and following talks about, don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. This is the transformation we're talking about. The one thing I would mention to you, even when we're talking about Paul's, and that's not a prescription, but it talks a little bit, certainly about, I shouldn't say Romans 1, it's Romans 12. He talks about transformation. Actually, he talks about three things. Let me just unpack it real quickly. First, conformation, or conforming to the world. When I conform to the world, I look just like it. I think like it. I do like it. Everything like that. And don't be conformed to the world. My form matches what the world is. And a lot of times the world is such that we have a lot of beliefs that are floating around that are part of the world that says if you think it, you can be it. And that it's not entirely true just because I think it. I have to act based on those thoughts. But then Paul makes this huge jump to transformation. And the key thing to keep in mind is that there's an intermediate step, which Paul doesn't mention, and I'm not trying to add anything to Scripture, but both conform and reform are both within my reach. I can accomplish reformation. I'm not really changing the material of how I think. I'm reforming it. But the only thing that will actually have an impact to transform it, which is a metamorphosis, it's a completely different new way of thinking, is through Christ alone. And that God's activity in our lives is actually what brings about this transformation. And short of that, all we really can do then is settle for reformation. But transformation, which is like I said, is a metamorphosis. Whoops. Metamorphosis is really what we talk about. It's the butterfly effect, not the movie. But essentially, I go from being a caterpillar that crawls on the ground to a butterfly that flies in the air, and that's really part of the backdrop of transformation, which is why when we're treating depression, a Christocentric worldview, a God-centered universe, actually provides one with a far greater level of hope. That doesn't mean it's instantaneous, but it does mean that there is an understanding that I can bring to it that actually provides me with the hope that God doesn't intend for me to live a life of meaninglessness, and because of that, then I can be engaged in the process to participate in my very own transformation.